Okay, so it seems like there's been an update on this whole entire Mythic talent situation, and this one has gotten pretty crazy, as this has come out from Grimmi. And if you guys don't remember, in the last video, we essentially covered a little clip of her talking about why she left Mythic talent, and also some responses to that from people like chachayourvmom. Now, again, this is kind of developed now, as beforehand, a lot of you guys were very frustrated because of, you know, the vague posting, essentially. People saying, you know, it's too vague, you know, we don't know what Mythic talent has done, but she said something had happened and something had gone over there, which essentially, you know, caused her to leave, and she was thinking about taking legal action. Now, again, thinking obviously doesn't mean necessarily that she will, but yeah, obviously a lot of you guys were frustrated by that. But it seems like we have a little bit of information as to what has actually gone down. Now, I don't know if this is the only thing or if there's maybe more things, but if you don't know anything about this, just a quick recap. Mythic Talent is a talent agency kind of thing, which essentially helps to find sponsors for a lot of creators in the space, a lot of big IRL creators, as well as a lot of VTubers. A lot of the big indie VTubers tend to work with them. And yeah, essentially the whole relationship is they find you sponsors, you take the sponsors, they kind of handle things, they take a cut, and that's about it, right? But recently there's been a post that has come out over on the YouTube drama Reddit, essentially taking a couple of screenshots from a Grimmi stream, which was actually deleted, I think, or taken down or hidden or whatever. Again, I'm not too sure. That's what they say on here. But essentially, the title of this is Mythic Talent Agency alleged to have skimmed money off the top of a sponsor shorting their talent, which again is pretty crazy. That's a crazy title, right? And of course, this is very similar to a lot of situations that we've seen in the past. Now, they say this has happened to the VTuber Grimmi. I didn't want to blast her name on the title because she's already nervous about this, but feels she needs to spread the word. At the moment, there aren't any clips of this because it's only a few hours old, although I'm sure some will eventually appear. And she set the VOD to not show up on Twitch at the moment of writing. I included screenshots of evidence she could show because there was evidence. It's technically an accusation, but she specifically is using the word allegation because she's trying to be very careful about this, which, yeah, I think that's understandable, right? And so also, if you don't know about her character, she's honest to her fault and truly tries to see the best in everybody all the time. So for her to speak about this is difficult, but she's wanting others within Mythic to know, which I think is fair enough, right? All the kind of clips and stuff that I've seen of Grimmi have been, you know, pretty nice, right? Again, I don't have any problems with her. I think she has been honest every time I think that we have kind of spoken about this. And yeah, you know, they're saying, so Grimmi personally actually befriended a game publisher that had previously sponsored her before, and through speaking to them, discovered there's a small discrepancy between multiple times between what the negotiated amount was that she would be paid versus what she was actually paid for in sponsorships. The negotiations are done with Mythic and the publisher. Talents don't get to see those documents or conversations, which obviously, yeah, is a little bit concerning, right? And some people might be a little bit worried about that because, you know, for me, for example, I handle every single contract myself. I get to see what is going into it. I get to see if there is some clauses I don't like, and I've always pointed it out whenever there is a clause that I don't like. But it seems like with Mythic, they have, you know, people working on it for them, and you never get to see it. You just get the money, which obviously leaves a little bit of room for that to be a little bit of fiddling or whatever, right? And that's what maybe some people are a little bit concerned about. Now, of course, yeah, it seems like there has been some kind of screenshots here. They say the first instance, which is, I think this screenshot, I'm pretty sure it's this screenshot. Let me just click it again just to double check and make sure, because it's on Imager or Imgur, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, okay, no, it is up here. So yeah, this is essentially, I think it's a Discord channel, and it looks like a Mythic Discord channel, and they say deliverables, you know, you do a 2-hour Twitch stream with overlaid chatbot pinned comment, pretty normal. The offer is 2,000 minus 20%. Now, again, I think that's actually pretty normal as well. I think, you know, obviously Mythic Talent take a cut. It is very, very well known that they do take a cut, right? That is, you know, part of their service is the fact that, you know, they take a cut for handling this stuff for you, which is normal and fine, right? But I think it's the kind of stuff that is unknown that I think Grimmi has a little bit of an issue with, right? They say, would it be possible to get the completed signed by both parties contract for this? And they say, got the contract. Our system states that it's actually 2,100 versus 2,000. So I dug into what happened. It was a typo with the brand, and so it was resolved between our sales team and their sales team. So you were always going to get the proper amount. Just the information didn't quite reach me, which is obviously still an issue. And obviously, yeah, you got Grimmi, Grimmi 1 hour Twitch stream, 2,100. which again, I think is pretty interesting because obviously they say there's a typo there. Now, again, I think it is pretty common for there to be typos and things and for there to be mistakes, even within talent companies like Mythic. Now, of course, is it a much bigger cock up if they do it? Of course, because, you know, they're supposed to be handling these contracts. They're supposed to be, you know, doing all of this stuff for you. And, you know, if, you know, there is a lot of typos and whatever, well, that doesn't look very good. And maybe, you know, you should find someone that doesn't mess up on such an important thing like, you know, money sales. Now, of course, though, there is this kind of open to interpretation thing of people thinking that, you know, potentially is this malicious or not? Like, have they actually tried to take money there and then they've been caught and they're like, oh, actually, you know, there was actually a typo, right? And that's, I think, what is trying to be implied there, which again, obviously that's just what's alleged, right? They say the outcome of negotiations was that she would be paid $2,100. However, the contract she received from Mythic was for $2,000, which is a 5% difference. The publisher gave her proof that they paid $2,100 to Mythic. The bottom bit, okay, at the bottom here is where they paid them $2,100 and to Mythic, and then Mythic sent her $2,000 she was expecting from the contract. When she alerted Mythic after finding out from the publisher, they told her it was a typo and that she was given an additional 100. Okay, so she found out after the payment, so they sent her 2,000 in payment, I'm assuming. And oh yeah, because this is back in November, right? So I'm assuming she's done it. She's done the Twitch stream, done the deliverable, whatever, and then been paid for it, and then realized that there was 100 missing because the publisher told her, hey, you know, we did pay you 2,100. You know, I don't know why they gave you 2,000. Which again, I think is, you know, an issue. And of course, as I said, there is definitely this kind of thing of like, you know, potentially it could have been a typo, right? And there could have been some kind of mistake that could have 100% been the case, right? And that's just trying to be fair, you know, to Mythic Talent. But of course, it's not very good enough whenever you're working with money, right? You know, a lot of, you know, there's a lot of issues in terms of like, if you are someone working with money, you've got to be pretty, you know, certain that this is the correct amount of money that you're sending. But again, we'll have to see, because there was a second instance as well, which is this screenshot here, and essentially they say the outcome was 4,400, but she was told it was 4,000, which is a 10% difference. The excuse Mythic gave was it was an additional fee because of an outside marketing agency. However, it was the exact same people negotiating it both times through the same emails, which makes that very unlikely. So yeah, they say there was also some odd mix up with the length. The publisher said 2 hours, but Grimmi was told 4. The key things here is that Mythic refuses to show her the negotiation documents between Mythic and publishers after she requested them. Only the contract that she signed. And 2, she has many more examples of this behavior, and I believe from multiple publishers, but this was the only publisher that gave her permission to show the evidence of on stream and publicized. These are not the only incidents. Okay, so there seems to be more incidents than these two, obviously, which have come up. Obviously, you can see here, offer 4,000, and then this was what they paid, what the, the publisher paid them, and they claimed that it was an outside agency, which I think is a bit weird because, again, it doesn't really make sense because you're paying one agency. Why should we pay 2 agencies if you're just going to take it from another agency, right? That doesn't make sense to me, right? And obviously they say, yeah, these are not the only incidents. She's keeping those others private in case it's taken to court. So yeah, I mean, that's fair enough, right? And of course, you know, a lot of people were mad at the fact that, you know, it's very vague and whatever in the original clip where she was talking about it. And I do think it is one of those cases where essentially, you know, you can either talk about it and, you know, let everybody know what is going on, or you don't talk about it at all and don't even like kind of allude to it, right? And I think that, you know, this is kind of like an in the middle kind of thing where she's given us a little bit of what is going on and has said that there is more of this going on, but she is, you know, thinking of taking it to court, right? And of course, she said she's also made it clear that this isn't an accepted fee that Mythic was supposed to take, and that the fact that she was given different excuses for each instance confirms that it's not a normal fee. Note, this is similar to what the agency vtuber did for their talents, skimming sponsor money by sending less to the talent than was actually negotiated. Grimmi is telling all talent with Mythic to request documentation of negotiations for companies they were sponsored by. The contracts they signed won't show the real amount Mythic was paid by the sponsor to go to the talent, only the amount that the talent was paid by Mythic, and so they need to be shown correspondence between companies to check if the amount is correct. She obviously left Mythic, and quite a few other talents have been leaving recently without giving any public reason why. And obviously, yeah, we've seen Filian's recently left, filian left a bit ago, obviously before her hiatus. And again, it is pretty interesting, right? Now, obviously, not all of those might correlate. You know, some of them might have just been a genuine, you know, they're moving on to other things, right? Which obviously could be the case, but maybe some of those might have had something to do with it. I don't know. We'll have to see, though, in the future if anybody speaks up about it. But again, you know, I do think, you know, what Grimmi is trying to do is a good thing, because she is warning other Mythic talent members, hey, just double check that the documents are good, because she's not even necessarily saying that, hey, they're doing this to them. You know, she's not even like trying to accuse them of doing it to them, but she's saying like, hey, request your documents just to double check, you know, just to make sure that this is not happening to you as well. And if it is happening to them as well, and if more people find out this is happening to them as well, then they have a problem on their hands, right? But obviously, if it isn't, then of course, it kind of changes things a little bit, because maybe this was just a one-off case with Grimmi, but that is still bad, right? It's still bad that she's not getting her money, but, you know, obviously we can see how it could get even worse if it was affecting other talents as well, which again, I don't know. We'll have to see, and we'll have to see if there's any kind of responses from VTubers and stuff that are within Mythic Talent, as well as other creators as well. Not even just VTubers, by the way. This affects everybody, not just Grimmi, not just VTubers. This affects the other, you know, IRL side of things as well. You know, all of the people affiliated with that too, which is going to be very interesting to see whether, you know, the kind of behaviors and whatever that Grimmi has shown off here is similar with other people. But again, of course, you know, we'll have to wait and see whether there is any responses or whatever to this. And of course, I'll keep you guys up to date. But, you know, just to kind of, you know, put it out there that this is all just allegations at the moment. The two instances from what I've seen, I mean, they could be explanations. They could be, you know, it's plausible that, you know, the reason that they have given could 100% be legitimate. But of course, as Grimmi says, apparently there's other incidents, so, you know, maybe that could also back up her points or whatever. Maybe there's some even worse things there that maybe she's seen. I don't know, but of course we'll have to wait and see to see if there's any kind of court stuff, if that even happens, right? Because again, I know she said that she was thinking about it, not necessarily that she was going to do it. But yeah, people in the replies saying, can't necessarily say I'm shocked that Mythic would allegedly pull this type of stunt, given that they call an ex-LSF mod both actively promoted a scam. I would not be shocked if it gets out that Mythic was a scam all the way down. Now, again, I don't want to, like, you know, completely bash Mythic, because, again, I think that, you know, we got to be fair in the sense that maybe, you know, some of these kind of reasons that they're given were legitimate. Again, I think the most interesting thing to kind of see about this is whether this is happening to more talent, right? Is this happening to any of the other VTubers that are featured on this list? Obviously, VTubers being, like, you know, because I cover VTuber stuff, but, you know, is it happening to any of these people? Is it happening to anybody on the wider creator list? Because, of course, all of these people are with Mythic, right? Are any of these people also checking their own kind of contracts and stuff? Is this going to be a problem, right? But again, this is just kind of, I feel like the murmurings that is going on, you know, behind the scenes, right? Lots of people saying, I'm not an avid watcher of her, but I noticed Filian, who's a pretty big VTuber, was a part of Mythic, and then she left it. She may have said a particular reason on stream, but I wouldn't know. I also know that the VTuber drama guy, Mujin, works under Mythic. It definitely can reach a lot more people if he made a video on it. Also, cough cough, Mythic Talent is partially owned by Asmongold. They say, again, I don't know why people keep bringing up Asmongold in this, like he's the one that is like, yeah, take a cut, dude. Take a cut from, like, let's be real. Dude had his subs turned off for, like, how many years? Like a very long time. I feel like he's not the one that really wants to kind of benefit off this. But of course, you know, maybe there is some kind of you know, incentive or whatever. Obviously, yeah, again, Mythic Talent owned by Asmongold. A lot of people are trying to push this onto Asmongold. Again, I know that there is, you know, a lot of stigma behind Asmongold. A lot of people dislike him. A lot of people like him as well. Obviously, yeah, I feel like a lot of people in my comment sections like him. But again, I don't see how this is like completely related to Asmongold, apart from him obviously you know, being partly owned by it. Obviously it doesn't mean he knows everything that is going on within the actual agency itself, and again, I don't even know how true or how much of a role he has at that company. So again, I think it is weird to kind of associate that with him right off the bat. Maybe, you know, if you want to associate with him in the way that maybe he should speak out about it and talk about it, maybe, but yeah, apart from that, I don't know. Obviously a lot of people, this is the person who tweeted last time about this. Now again, they were trying to call them a black company and whatever, and I do think that it was interesting because they're not technically a VTuber, and it's like, what really classifies as a black company? You know, does it have to be a VTuber agency, or can it be any agency, or can it be any company? Because technically it is black company. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be a VTuber related company, but again, it's usually associated with VTuber agencies. So again, they were kind of calling it that before any of this came out, and now they're saying stuff like, yeah, turns out they screwed over our sponsorship money and lied about it, allegedly, of course, saying something VShojo was known to do, especially near their end. Not the kind of nidgy black, but still pretty dark. And of course, yeah, I think there's definitely some issues that have been going on. She has definitely had, you know, some mistreatment in whatever way that is. Now, it's more so finding out whether this was on purpose or whether this was, you know, just a genuine mistake. And again, I can't tell. And of course, we will have to wait for the more information. Of course, more people have been talking about, you know, as well in the summary, and people saying, isn't that the explicit business model? But yeah, people are saying, you know, I think they're taking a cut on top of the negotiated cut. Which again, some people get confused by that, by the way. You know, people have been saying, well, isn't that their business model to take a cut whenever they give you a sponsorship? That is true. They do take a cut and they tell you what cut they take. But what Grimmi is saying here is that they are taking another little cut on top of that cut, which of course, she won't know about, because apparently, you know, they've been saying, oh, you know, it's 2000 when it's actually 2100, right? So again, it is pretty interesting. People saying seems like it's a consistent 10% fee. I would assume that it's something in the contract, because it seems stupid for them to straight up take money given how easily you can find that information out. And yeah, that definitely makes me very skeptical about that kind of stuff too. Again, you know, I wanted to keep it fair. I think that, you know, there is maybe a fee or whatever, but again, I think it's two kind of sides of things, because why would they openly take money? You know, why would they openly take an amount of money this kind of obviously, when, you know, we can see it's very easy to find this out, as Grimmi has found out. You know, why would they do that? Why would they jeopardize literally everything over that? But also on the flip side, why wouldn't they just say, oh, there's another 10% fee which we didn't tell you about, if it was another fee that she had to pay, right? I don't know, because again, it is very weird, but the only thing that kind of would make sense to me is that maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was, you know, something to do with like that fee. Like, I feel like, you know, with the second one where they said they used an external kind of agency or whatever, so they have a fee on top of that, that should have been communicated to her better, and that should have been told to her from the get-go that, you know, hey, you know, this is going to be a little bit more off because there is another company in the works with this. But again, they didn't, and she found it afterwards, right? Which again, obviously isn't great because the communication wasn't there. But, you know, maybe Mythic Talent will come out and respond to this and talk about it all. But I am very much in the middle at the moment in terms of what is going on. I just kind of wanted to share this information with you and kind of explain a couple of things, because, you know, a lot of people don't understand the inner workings of a, you know, talent agency or, you know, sponsorships and stuff like that. And I've worked with a lot of sponsors and things, so maybe this can kind of clear a little bit up for you in terms of like the fact that, you know, talent agencies do take cuts usually, but they tell you about the cuts that they take, you know, instead of, you know, trying to, you know, take money or whatever, and then maybe it's a mistake or whatever. I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what goes on. And of course, it is pretty interesting as this has been blowing up in the past couple of hours or so. So yeah, as I said, I'll keep you guys up to date if there's any kind of responses from any of the VTubers or whatever within Mythic or Mythic themselves, or even Grimmi. You know, of course, there's probably going to be more to this, I feel like. But again, we'll have to wait and see. And as I said, I'll keep you guys up to date. But yeah, that's about all I got. I'll see you guys in the next one. That's all. So yeah, also go to game subs. Go to game subs. Use my code Kazu. Do it. Anyways, bye.